I was denied a room in my son's house, but I built a home where they now beg to stay. I'll never forget the way silence can cut deeper than words. The day I asked my son if there was a small corner for me in his new house. Just a room where I could lay my head and watch my grandchildren grow. He looked past me, as if I were already a ghost. His wife smiled, that tight smile people wear when they've already decided you don't belong. "There's no space, Mama," he said, his voice flat, distant. "No space. In a house with 5 bedrooms and marble floors." That's when I understood. They weren't denying me a room. They were erasing me from their future. Welcome, my dear. This is Revenge with Alice, where stories aren't just told. They're felt, lived, and learned from. Pour yourself something warm, settle in close, and let me share a truth with you. Life doesn't always give you justice right away. But if you're patient, if you're strong, it always comes. Sometimes quietly, sometimes loud enough to shake the walls. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the betrayal, before the silence became louder than love. I raised my son, Daniel, with every ounce of strength I had. His father passed when Daniel was only 7. Heart attack, sudden and cruel, and I became mother and father both. I worked 2 jobs. I stitched clothes at night under a dim bulb while he slept. I gave him everything I could scrape together. School supplies, warm meals, dreams I couldn't afford for myself. When he graduated college, I cried so hard my chest ached. I thought, this is it. This is what it was all for. He met Rebecca during his 2nd year at his new job. She was beautiful, polished nails, designer handbags, the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about rent. I remember the first time he brought her to my little apartment. She walked in slowly, her eyes scanning the faded wallpaper, the second-hand furniture, the chipped teacups I'd collected over the years. She didn't say anything rude. She didn't have to. Her silence said it all. But I smiled. I made tea. I asked her about herself, tried to make her feel welcome. Daniel was happy, and that was enough for me. Or so I told myself. They married a year later. It was a beautiful wedding. Grand. Expensive. Everything I could never have given him. I sat in the 3rd row, not the first. Rebecca's mother sat beside Daniel at the head table during the reception. I ate my meal quietly, clapped when I was supposed to, and told myself it didn't matter. Love isn't about seating arrangements. But it was the small things that started to add up. The phone calls became shorter. Sunday dinners at my place stopped. "We're busy, Mama," Daniel would say. "Rebecca's hosting something." Or, "We've got plans." I understood. Newlyweds need their space. I didn't push. I never wanted to be the kind of mother who clung too tight. Then came the news that changed everything. "Mama, we bought a house." Daniel's voice was electric with excitement when he called. "It's big, beautiful. 5 bedrooms, a backyard, everything we ever wanted." My heart swelled. 5 bedrooms. I imagined one of them being mine. A quiet corner where I could read, watch the sun rise, help with the grandchildren when they came. I imagined being part of their daily life again, not just a voice on the phone. "That's wonderful, baby," I said, my voice trembling with hope. "When can I see it?" There was a pause, just a beat too long. "We'll have you over soon," he said. 2 months passed before I finally saw the house. Rebecca gave me a tour, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. Every room was pristine. Cream-colored walls, soft lighting, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She showed me the master bedroom, the guest rooms, the nursery they were already planning. "It's beautiful," I whispered, running my fingers along the kitchen counter. "You've built something really special here." Rebecca smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's when I asked. We were standing in the hallway, sunlight pouring through the tall windows. Daniel was outside, talking on the phone. I turned to Rebecca, my voice soft, hopeful. "Rebecca, honey, I was thinking, now that you have all the space, maybe Maybe there's a room where I could stay? Just something small. I wouldn't be in the way. I could help with cooking. Watch the babies when they come. Her face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The warmth drained from her expression like water down a sink. "Oh, Mama Alice," she said, her voice syrupy but cold. "The thing is, we really need all the rooms. One's Daniel's office, one's my yoga studio, one's for guests, our guests, and we're keeping one open for storage and future plans." I felt something crack inside my chest. "I see," I said quietly. Daniel came back inside then, and I asked him directly. I needed to hear it from him. "Danny, I was just asking Rebecca if maybe I could have a small room here? I won't be a burden, I promise. I just want to be close to you." He looked at Rebecca, then back at me. "Mama," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's really no space right now. We've got everything planned out. Besides, you have your apartment. You're fine there, right? You're fine there." As if being alone in a place that echoed with memories of struggle was the same as being home. As if proximity to him, my only child, didn't matter. I forced a smile. "Of course, I'm fine." But I wasn't. I went home that evening and sat in my small kitchen, the one where I used to pack Daniel's lunches, where I taught him to crack eggs and fold dumplings. I stared at the walls that had held us through every storm, and I felt the weight of it all. The years of sacrifice, the love I poured into a child who had now built a life with no room for me in it. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, numb. It wasn't the lack of space that hurt. It was the ease with which he said no. The way Rebecca looked at me like I was an inconvenience. The realization that I had become optional. For the first time in my life, I felt invisible. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every sacrifice, every time I chose him over myself. And I wondered, when did I stop mattering? But somewhere in the quiet hours before dawn, something shifted inside me. I wasn't broken. I was awake, and I realized something powerful. If they wouldn't make space for me in their home, I would build my own. Not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. I had spent my whole life building a foundation for someone else. Now it was time to build one for myself. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't call Rebecca. I simply opened my old savings account, stared at the modest number on the page, and whispered to myself, "This is enough. I am enough." What I didn't know then was that the home I was about to build would become the one place they would desperately need. And when that day came, I would have to decide. Would I open the door they once closed on me? But that part of the story, well, that's still unfolding. They say when one door closes, another opens. But nobody tells you that sometimes you have to build that door yourself. Nail by nail, board by board, with hands that shake from hurt but refuse to stay still. After my son told me there was no room for me in his life, I could have withered away in that little apartment, waiting for phone calls that came less and less. But I didn't. Instead, I did something they never expected. I built myself a sanctuary. And in doing so, I built something they would one day need more than I ever needed them. Welcome back, dear ones. This is Revenge with Alice, and if you're returning, you already know, these aren't just stories. They're lessons wrapped in life, pain turned into power. Last time, I told you how my son denied me a room in his beautiful new house. Today, I'm going to tell you what I did next. And trust me, this is where everything begins to shift. The morning after my decision, I woke with a strange sense of clarity. My small apartment felt different. Not like a prison anymore, but like a launching pad. I made my coffee slowly, sat at my kitchen table, and opened the notebook I'd used for years to track expenses. On a fresh page, I wrote 3 words: build your home. I was 72 years old. Most people my age were settling into retirement, accepting whatever life handed them. But I wasn't most people. I had survived widowhood, poverty, and now rejection from my own child. If I could survive all that, I could certainly build a house. The first person I called was my old friend, Margaret. She'd been a realtor before she retired, and she knew land in our county better than anyone. "Maggie," I said when she answered, "I need your help finding a piece of land. Something affordable. Somewhere quiet." There was a pause on the line. "Alice, are you serious?" "Dead serious. What about Daniel? I thought you'd be moving in with him and Rebecca eventually." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Plans changed. I'm building my own place. She didn't ask questions. That's what I loved about Margaret. She knew when to listen and when to act. "Give me 2 days," she said. True to her word, 2 days later we were driving down a winding country road about 30 minutes outside of town. The land she showed me wasn't much. Just 2 acres on a hillside, overgrown with wildflowers and bordered by oak trees. But when I stood there, feeling the breeze and hearing nothing but birds, something inside me settled. "How much?" I asked. The price was reasonable, more than I wanted to spend, but within reach if I was careful. I thought about my savings. Money I'd tucked away from decades of work, coins and bills saved from groceries, from choosing the cheaper option, from saying no to myself so I could say yes to Daniel. Now it was time to say yes to me. "I'll take it," I said. Margaret stared at me. "Alice, are you sure? Building a house at your age." "I'm sure," I interrupted gently. "I've never been more sure of anything." The paperwork took 3 weeks. During that time, I didn't tell Daniel what I was doing. He called once, a brief conversation about nothing important. "How are you, Mama?" he asked, his voice distracted. "I'm good, baby. Real good." He didn't ask why I sounded different. He didn't notice the hope threading through my words. He had stopped really listening to me months ago. When the land was officially mine, I stood on it alone one evening and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from something I hadn't felt in years: possibility. This dirt, these trees, this view, it was all mine. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could tell me I didn't belong here. Next came the hard part: designing and building the house. I couldn't afford an architect, so I went to the library and checked out books on small home construction. I sketched plans on graph paper at my kitchen table. A simple 1-story house with 2 bedrooms, a wide front porch, big windows to let in light, and a kitchen with enough room to cook for a family, even if that family never came. I found a contractor named Joe, a man in his 50s who'd built homes his whole life. When I showed him my sketches and told him my budget, he scratched his beard and studied me carefully. "Ma'am, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is tight, real tight. But if you're willing to do some of the work yourself, painting, landscaping, maybe some of the simpler finishing, I think we can make it happen." "I'm willing," I said firmly. "I'm not afraid of hard work." He smiled then, a real smile. "I can see that. All right, Miss Alice, let's build you a home." Construction began in early spring. I drove out to the land every single day, sometimes twice. I watched as the foundation was poured, as the frame went up, as walls began to take shape. Joe's crew was small but skilled, and they treated me with respect. They didn't question why an old woman was building a house alone. They just worked, and I worked too. On weekends, I painted the interior walls, a soft cream color that reminded me of morning light. I planted flowers around the foundation: roses, lavender, daisies. I chose cabinet hardware, picked out light fixtures from discount stores, and sanded down the porch railings myself until my hands ached. Daniel called twice during those months. Both times, I was at the property, covered in paint or dirt. "Where are you, Mama? You sound out of breath." "Just doing some gardening, baby," I said. It wasn't a lie. I just didn't mention the garden was at a house he didn't know existed. "You should take it easy," he said absently. "You're not getting any younger." I bit my tongue. "I'm building a house," I wanted to say. "I'm doing what you said I couldn't do, creating space for myself." But I stayed quiet. Some lessons aren't taught with words. They're revealed with time. By midsummer, the house was nearly finished. It was small, just under 1,200 square feet, but it was mine. The porch stretched across the entire front, perfect for morning coffee and evening sunsets. The kitchen had open shelving I'd installed myself. The guest bedroom had a soft quilt I'd stitched over quiet nights. Every corner of that house held a piece of my heart. The day I moved in, Margaret helped me carry boxes from my old apartment. We didn't have much to move. I'd lived simply for so long. But what I did bring felt sacred. My mother's dishes, photos of Daniel as a boy, the rocking chair I'd nursed him in. As we set the last box down, Margaret looked around and shook her head in wonder. "Alice, this place, it's beautiful. It's you." I smiled, tears pooling in my eyes. "It is, isn't it?" That first night, I sat on my new porch as the sun set over the hills. The air smelled like pine and earth. Crickets sang. The sky turned shades of orange and pink I'd forgotten existed. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. I hadn't needed Daniel's approval. I hadn't needed Rebecca's acceptance. I had needed only my own determination and belief that I deserved more than scraps of love and leftover space. But even as peace settled into my bones, I wondered, would Daniel ever see this place? Would he ever know what his mother had built from the ashes of his rejection? And more importantly, would he care? 3 months passed. I lived quietly in my new home, tending my garden, reading on the porch, and hosting Margaret for tea. I didn't reach out to Daniel. I wanted to see how long it would take for him to notice my absence. Took 4 months. When he finally called, his voice was tight with irritation. "Mama, I drove by your old apartment and the landlord said you moved. Where are you? Why didn't you tell me?" I took a slow breath. "I bought some land and built a house, Danny. I've been here since summer." Silence. "You what?" "I built a house. I'm living here now." "Why would you do that?" His voice rose slightly. "You should have told me. What if something happens to you out there alone?" I almost laughed. The irony was thick enough to choke on. "I'm fine, baby. Better than fine, actually." "Where is it?" "Send me the address. Rebecca and I want to come see it." And there it was, the first crack in their indifference. I gave him the address. And as I hung up the phone, I wondered what they would see when they arrived. Would they see the love I poured into every corner? Would they feel the strength it took to build something from nothing? Or would they just see an old woman's house and miss the point entirely? I supposed I'd find out soon enough, because they were coming, and I had a feeling this visit would change everything. They say you never truly know someone's value until you need them. My son and his wife didn't think they needed me. Not when they had their big house, their perfect plans, their carefully curated life. But life has a way of humbling the proud and teaching lessons to those who refuse to learn them gently. The day they drove up to my little sanctuary on the hill, everything I'd quietly built was about to speak louder than any words I could have said. And what they discovered there would shake the very foundation of the life they thought was so secure. Welcome back, my dear friends. This is Revenge with Alice, where the stories aren't just told. They're lived, breathed, and learned from. If this is your first time here, go back and start from chapter 1. You'll want to know how we got here. And if you've been walking this journey with me, I'm grateful for your company. Now, before we continue, if these stories touch your heart, if they remind you that strength comes in the quietest forms, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because there are so many more stories to tell, and I want you here for every single one. Now let's continue. They came on a Saturday afternoon in early autumn. I heard the car before I saw it. The sound of expensive tires crunching on the gravel driveway I'd laid myself with Joe's help. I was on the porch, shelling peas into a wooden bowl, my hands moving with the rhythm of years of practice. When Daniel's silver SUV came into view, my heart did something strange. It leaped and sank at the same time. Part of me had missed him desperately. Part of me had grown comfortable in his absence. He parked and stepped out first, his eyes scanning the property with an expression I couldn't quite read. Rebecca emerged from the passenger side, her designer sunglasses reflecting the afternoon sun. She looked thinner than I remembered, her face drawn despite the makeup. "Mama," Daniel called out, walking toward the porch. His voice held surprise, maybe confusion. This is really something." I set down my bowl and stood, smoothing my apron. "Welcome, baby. Rebecca." Rebecca's mouth was slightly open as she turned in a slow circle, taking in the house, the wraparound porch, the flower gardens bursting with late-season blooms, the oak trees framing the property like nature's cathedral. "You built this?" she asked, and for the first time since I'd met her, there was no condescension in her voice, only disbelief. "With some help," I said simply. "But yes, I built this." Daniel climbed the porch steps, his hand trailing along the railing I'd sanded and stained. "Mama, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? When did you even... How did you afford this?" I gestured to the rocking chairs I'd positioned at the far end of the porch. "Sit. I'll make some tea, and we can talk." Inside, as I put the kettle on, I heard them whispering on the porch. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew the tone. Confusion mixed with something else. Guilt, perhaps, or maybe just surprise that their old, rejected mother had turned out to be more capable than they'd imagined. I brought out a tray with tea and the butter cookies I'd baked that morning. Rebecca took a cup with both hands, wrapping her fingers around it like she was cold despite the mild weather. "So," I said, settling into my chair, "what brings you all the way out here?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Mama, we wanted to see where you were living. Make sure you were okay." "I'm more than okay," I said gently. "I'm happy." Something flickered across Rebecca's face. Was it envy? She looked out at the view, at the rolling hills painted in autumn colors, at the peace that seemed to hover over this place like a blessing. "It's beautiful," she admitted quietly. "Really beautiful." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping tea. Then Daniel cleared his throat. "Mama, I'm sorry I didn't help you with this. If I'd known you were planning something like this, I would have..." "Would have what?" I interrupted softly. "Would you have made room for me then? Or would you have tried to talk me out of it?" He looked down at his cup. He couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. Rebecca spoke up, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "We didn't realize... we thought you were fine where you were." "I was surviving," I corrected. "There's a difference between surviving and living. I spent so many years just surviving. For Danny, for our family, for everyone but myself. This," I gestured to the house, the land, the life I'd created. "This is living." The tea grew cold as we talked. I showed them through the house, the kitchen where light poured through the windows I'd positioned just right, the cozy living room with the fireplace, the guest bedroom I'd furnished with care. Rebecca ran her fingers along the handmade quilt, and I saw her eyes glisten. "You made this?" she asked. "Every stitch." We ended up back on the porch as the sun began its descent. The sky was putting on a show, brilliant oranges and purples that made everything feel suspended in time. That's when Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face tightened. "I need to take this work thing." He walked to the far end of the porch, his voice low and tense. Rebecca and I sat alone for the first time since they'd arrived. She stared at her hands, twisting the wedding ring on her finger. "Mrs. Alice," she began, then stopped, started again. "I owe you an apology." I waited, giving her space to continue. "When Daniel brought me to your apartment that first time, I judged you. I looked at where you lived and I thought you were just this poor old woman who would want to cling to us, who would be a burden." Her voice cracked. "I convinced Daniel that we needed our space, that having you around would complicate things. I made him choose between his new life and you." "I know," I said simply. She looked up, tears streaming down her face now. I was wrong. So wrong. Looking at what you've built here, seeing your strength, I realized I was afraid of you. Afraid of me? I asked, genuinely surprised. Afraid of what you represented. You're strong in ways I've never been. You survived loss, poverty, struggle. And you're still here, still building, still creating beauty. I have money, status, all the things I thought mattered. But I'm miserable, Mrs. Alice. My marriage is falling apart. That big house feels like a museum, not a home. And she sobbed openly now. I don't know how to fix any of it. I reached over and took her hand. Her skin was cold despite the warm evening. Rebecca, honey, I said softly. The things you're learning now, I learned the hard way too. A house is just walls and a roof until you fill it with love, with purpose, with things that actually matter. You can't buy peace. You can't purchase belonging. You have to build it, brick by brick, choice by choice. Daniel finished his call and returned, his face troubled. He saw Rebecca crying and looked alarmed. What happened? What's wrong? Rebecca wiped her eyes. Nothing's wrong. For the first time in a long time, maybe something's right. As evening deepened into night, Daniel finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. Mama, can we come visit you here? Regularly. I looked at my son. My boy who'd grown into a man who'd forgotten where he came from, who'd built a big house but lost sight of what makes a home. You're always welcome here, Danny, I said. Both of you. This door will always be open to you. His shoulders sagged with relief. But, I continued, my voice firm but loving. You need to understand something. I didn't build this place hoping you'd come back. I built it because I needed to remember my own worth. I built it because I deserved a home, whether you made room for me or not. He nodded, tears in his eyes now too. I know, Mama, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't matter. You didn't make me feel that way, I corrected gently. You showed me that I didn't matter to you then. But pain like that can either break you or wake you up. It woke me up. They left as the stars emerged, promising to visit the following weekend. I watched their taillights disappear down the long driveway, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not quite forgiveness yet, but the beginning of it. What I didn't know that night, as I locked my doors and climbed into my comfortable bed, was that within 3 months, Daniel and Rebecca would be standing on that porch again. But next time, they wouldn't be visiting. They'd be asking to stay. And when that moment came, I would have to make the hardest decision of all. Would I let them into the home they once denied me? But that, my dear friends, is a story for next time. If this story touched your heart, if you felt Grandma Alice's pain and triumph, please subscribe to Revenge with Alice. Hit that bell so you never miss a chapter. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to build a life that honors your worth. And remember, life always has a way of bringing things full circle. Always. Until next time, my dears, keep building, keep believing, keep knowing your worth.